The Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 is one of my favorite pieces of tech from last year and is definitely my pick for the best phone of 2025. With the Fold 8 coming out very soon, I decided to go back to the Fold 7 as my daily driver after spending a good amount of time with the camera-focused slab phones like the Xiaomi 17 Ultra and the Samsung S26 Ultra. It's honestly been a very interesting, maybe conflicting experience going back to this phone, so let me go through everything, let you know how it's held up after a year, and see if you should still buy one right now. Coming back to the Fold 7 after using a big camera phone for so long, one of the first things I noticed was just how surprisingly light and compact this foldable feels. The Xiaomi is a pretty thick, heavy camera slab, so picking up the Fold 7 again felt almost weirdly light considering it's got a huge screen inside. And when it's closed, man, it's just so comfortable to hold. It's actually kind of crazy that a phone with the 8-inch inner display gets this thin and light. Since this is so narrow compared to a regular slab phone, it kind of feels like those tall Sony Xperia phones, making this really easy to hold and use one-handed. And the hardware itself has held up really well. No noticeable scratches, no dents, it looks really good, almost as good as day one. I do have some stains from adhesives used for some of the cases, but it's mostly gone and that is cleanable. Even the inner display's crease doesn't look that much worse either, it's still pretty flat. A lot of the previous Fold phones had some issues with durability and aging and things like that even after just a year, but thankfully we didn't have any issues like that with the Fold 7, so I'm really satisfied. Now the one hardware thing that still bothers me is the wobble when the phone is sitting flat on a table. Because of the camera bump sticking out so much, there's always this rock every time you tap on the screen or rest your hand near it. And even with a thicker case on, it's still gonna be there. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just a little annoying, especially coming from slab phones that just sit well and doesn't rock on my desk while I check my phone real quick for a notification. But yeah, in terms of just how slim and light this thing feels day to day, it does hold up really well, not just as a foldable, but just as a phone too. And coming back to Samsung's One UI after months on Xiaomi's HyperOS, it actually feels so good to be back on this software experience. Everything is right where I left it, apps behave the way I expect them to, settings are where they're supposed to be. One UI just has this really comfortable, organized, full features polish that HyperOS doesn't have for me. Everything just works, all the apps work, there's less bugs in the overall UI, and the persistent apps I do need to stay awake in the background, they do stay awake. And all that well-rounded functionality makes the day-to-day so much more convenient for me. Now the biggest reason I came back to the Fold 7 over any other phone is simply the super useful inner display for all the multitasking that I can do on it. I can run two full vertical apps side by side and throw a pop-up window on top of that, so I could have YouTube playing, a Slack message open in a pop-up, and still have something else sitting in the split screen. And no slab phone has enough screen real estate for me to be doing that on a regular basis. And Android and One UI's split view inside apps like Gmail makes this even better. I know a lot of people like to point out that for watching videos, the screen's really not that much bigger than a regular phone. That is true, but you also have that extra screen on the top or bottom or the sides to check the comments, related videos, or pop up an app to check things while the full screen video is ongoing. Really, that's the killer feature here. It's not really for playing big screen videos. And by the way, the Fold definitely handles all this super well, which isn't surprising since this has flagship specs. But yeah, never felt like it was killing things in the background no matter how many apps I had open. It does get pretty warm when playing games, but the thermal management is done well here. I never thought that there were any heating issues. One side effect of all this usability though is that I use my phone a lot more now ever since being on a foldable again. Like during those times where I wouldn't be doing anything with a regular slab phone, or with this Fold 7, I'm constantly doing stuff. I'm constantly watching videos, I'm consuming content, I'm just always on my phone. That's great, I love it, but it does mean I'm using my phone a lot more often, which might not be the best healthy habit. Overall though, yeah, the combination of the big screen and the One UI software experience are still where the Fold 7 really shined for me. Now, on that note, we do have to talk about the battery. The thing is, because that inner display is so useful and so fun to use, I just end up using my phone a lot more than I would on any slab phone. I love that, that's kind of the whole point of having this phone, but what that also means is that battery is just getting hit harder earlier in the day every single day. Because of that, I've been looking for a charger around midday on a daily basis. Now, directly coming from the S26 Ultra and the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, which are more camera-focused slab phones, I use those very passively. I wasn't always on them. But the Fold 7 is a totally different story, so I always saw the battery actually running out sooner. But it's not that the Fold 7 has bad battery life, it's just that those other phones didn't make me use them as often. That said, I was still pulling around 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, which honestly isn't bad at all for how thin this thing is and for the fact that this is both a tablet and a phone. But it also doesn't help that this only has 25 watts of fast charging. So it's definitely one of those slower charging phones right now in 2026. One thing that really does help here with the battery is switching the performance profile to light mode. I know it sounds like it should make things feel slower, but it really doesn't. The day-to-day performance feels basically the same as the default setting, and is nowhere near as restrictive as the full power saving mode. With the light mode on, I'm comfortably hitting closer to that full day 6-hour screen on time, so if you're not going to be gaming on this thing all the time, it's worth turning on light mode and just leaving it there. So yeah, the battery situation isn't something to worry about, but it is something you need to keep in mind and kind of plan around. Keep a charger nearby on the heavier days outside, flip on the light performance mode, and overall, full day use is totally doable, so you don't have to worry about that, especially when you use your phone more casually and passively. It's just I'm more of a heavy user. Then let's move on over to the cameras, which is where things sadly get a little rough. Coming back from the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, which has that massive 1-inch main sensor and this crazy variable periscope lens, the Fold 7's camera system just felt like a huge step down. It's really not a fair comparison to say that, but it's just my very first real reactions when switching over to this phone. Even when I shoot in RAW to try and pull out more detail and have more control in Lightroom, it still doesn't even come close. The weakest point by far is that tiny 3x telephoto lens. The sensor behind it is just really small, the zoom is limited, and it just doesn't capture much detail at all. After getting so used to Xiaomi's variable periscope, this is the part of the camera where I felt the most difference. It's really not even close when you compare images side by side. Now the main camera is actually in a better place than the telephoto. In good lighting, it holds up pretty well. I'd say it's somewhere in the same ballpark as the iPhone 17 Pro's main camera, which is a decent result for a phone with this form factor. There is some over sharpening in the processing, but it's not terrible. It's really the weak 3x tele lens that annoys me more than anything with the main shooter. I still managed to get some shots I was happy with on the Fold 7. My recent trip to Busan was actually a good example of that. Some of these photos came out much better than I expected, especially using some of the filters I made in the past. But the thing is, it just takes a lot more intention and patience to get a good photo out of this, especially without a proper tele lens. I have to be more intentional about the framing, the zoom, and the overall quality, and I end up spending more time editing on Lightroom to get these photos to really look okay for my eyes. So that's a little bit too much work for me, honestly, so I don't shoot in RAW anymore on this, I just shoot on auto. It's just a completely different workflow compared to what I had with the Xiaomi or even the S26 Ultra. For those phones, I could just point and trust the hardware to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and I just have to apply a preset in post. So yeah, the camera downgrade is real for me, and no matter how I think about shooting on this thing, I do wish it had better camera hardware, especially the telephoto. I do understand the constraints of fitting better camera hardware into this really thin foldable form factor, but even with that understanding, this is Samsung's most expensive phone in their current lineup, so that's still a bummer for me. Alright, so putting everything together, the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 is still a really good phone, and I still stand by it being my phone of the year last year. The camera step down from coming from a camera focused phone is real, and I do feel it, especially with that weaker tele lens, and that battery does run out of juice faster than I remembered, but the multitasking and the One UI experience make this the phone that I actually want to use day to day. That's honestly the big trade-off, but right now I still think it's worth it. I might just carry around an extra camera or something. And if you are thinking about picking this up right now, it's actually not a bad idea. The Fold 8 series is coming with higher prices across the board thanks to all the memory craze and the prices going up for all the components. So actually, buying a discounted or secondhand Fold 7 right now is honestly a pretty good move, especially if you're looking for a great foldable phone. Alright, that's everything I have to say about the Fold 7 after a year of using it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of the Fold 7 right now in 2026, and if you consider picking one up before the Fold 8. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.